Hey there, Simone here with Bulletproof Business Growth. As always, with ideas and insights, what to pay attention to when you're on that path of growing and scaling your business. So in the last few weeks, we have talked a lot about hiring up, hiring down, making sure you hire at the right level to help you really scale your business, where you're not wasting a ton of time, money, and resources to do it the wrong way. And if you haven't listened to that, I'd recommend you listen to the previous episodes. But it's very important, of course, the next thing that happens is like, let's say you did great, you did right, and you hired that great number two who's now going to be that glue in your business between you and the team and enabling you to do much better, get out of your current seat and really step into the CEO position. Let's say you did that right and you have this great new person in. Well, you might think about what are the pitfalls that you need to avoid when you're hiring that number two so that person can really fulfill at the highest level and make sure that that big investment that you just made is actually worth it. So we have to really think about this. What we really need to do, right? For us, what our focus is we help our clients get out of the driver's seat so that they can truly step up to that next CEO level like I just talked about. So that means we also have to make sure that the team up levels, and that means we have to get that person in place who will truly lead them. Now, that doesn't come without challenges, and that's what we're talking about today. So what does it really mean when you hire your number two? It is, when you think about this, right? This is the most important role you could be hiring for. And because when you think about what do, they're the extension of you. They are your translator between what's happening at the executive level and the rest of your team. So they have to be 100% focused on your mission, your vision. They have to be a shining example of your core values and standards. They have to defend your culture. They're the one who is leading your team now instead of you. So you're being the highest example, but the person they're looking at from here on out, and the person who's directing them and growing them and teaching them and who they will model after, most likely and intentionally will be that person. So there's a lot of pressure and a lot of responsibility that comes with not just being in that role, but setting up for that role so that that person that you get into that role, they will be able to do the best job possible. So there's a lot of stuff with this. And you know, this could be that moment when really, when you do this right, this could truly enable you to finally be out of the driver's seat, to finally be able to focus on growth, to finally be that CEO you've always wanted to be, where you get the freedom and the results that you've been looking for. So that role is crucial. Now, like I said, they're going to be looking at this person as their example, as their model. So that means they have to lead them right? So this new leader has to be the best leader possible because they will be influencing all the other leaders, right? Because how we always want to look at this is we want leaders at every level. So every single person in your team thinks of themselves as a leader, but anybody who's in a true leadership position, they need to be the model of leadership because that's what everybody else goes by. So one huge thing to pay attention to and eliminate is when you get somebody in who's previously been a manager and where managing meant they basically took care of everything that was falling through the cracks, where they basically were the ones that made everything happen, that took over things, that made sure if something didn't go right, that they corrected the mistakes, fought the fires, all that stuff. And the team is just kind of still on those basic level tasks, which that doesn't help us at all. So we call that a level 2 manager, like somebody who's truly just micromanaging the team and stepping in and taking care of everything, which means they're definitely not scalable. And they will also raise your team, influence your team in absolutely the wrong way. So we have to make sure that we eliminate any tendencies to micromanagement, where your new leader has to work alongside of you on the vision so that they are truly bought in and truly excited about your vision, and that's what they're operating by, that they are 100% bought into your mission. They know exactly what that is and they love it, right? So they have to kind of go through all the pieces where they defend your vision and implement it. And that's what they talk to the team about. Then they're very good at planning and budgeting, and they understand everything around that. And they also understand how to help others plan well. And then they go through all the steps of implementation with the team to make sure that everybody has what they need, that they're being coached, that they're being grown, that they're being mentored so that they can keep growing. So inspiring that leadership in the rest of your team, which also means they have to have very good communication techniques. They have to be able to run meetings that are extremely well organized and on purpose, and that they have those really good leadership practices that help them unblock the team, help them show up at a higher level, help them deliver at a higher level. And a huge piece of that is holding people accountable and making sure that they have all the tools that they need to have to be accountable, right? So those are the main functions of that number 2. But what needs to happen with that in place is we need to really define what that looks like. And another function of that number 2, of course, is being the guardian of your culture. And I never want to underemphasize that, because that's what makes everything go around, right? But all right, so now that we know kind of what we have to pay attention to, the next piece is really for you to get clear about your role, right? Because this number 2 is coming in. When you're really honest about it, you want them to replace you in your current role. So that means you have to figure out what your role really needs to look like, because probably 90% of the stuff you've been doing actually really needs to come off your plate and on their plate, so you can really only focus on those 5 or 10% that only you can do. So we start with them replacing you, because what also happens is now that action has to go through the team, where your number 2 is replacing you in your current role, but that also means that somebody else in your team has to start stepping up to lighten the load on that number 2's plate, right? So this all means everybody, like hiring that number 2 means everybody on the team has to up level for this to work. So first of all, like I said, we have to really get into defining your role. And that means you really looking at, ideally, hey, what's only the 5% that only I can do? That you really look at, what does it mean? And a lot of times, what that really means is stepping into things that you really haven't wanted to do. Like for a lot of people, that means doing more networking, showing up in public, doing all sorts of outreach, really expanding your network, your influence level, your impact level, being the public face of the company. The bigger you get, the more important that piece gets. And anybody who's ever tried to get any type of funding, you very quickly know that that's the place where you've been missing, because if you haven't been making those connections and nurturing those relationships, you're going to have a big problem. So really looking at, where am I getting in my own way right now? Where am I wasting my time? Where am I doing $20 an hour work where I should be doing, $1,000 an hour work? Where am I getting in the way of my team because they could actually be doing things, but I constantly start taking over. I don't trust them. I don't train them enough. Like all those things. This is really where you have to do pretty deep soul searching, because this is all what keeps getting in the way of you truly going fast and building this company to a new level. So defining your CEO role, number one, and then of course number two is defining the number two role. So we have to look at what the impact is of all these roles shifting, because it will impact every single other person's role, right? So we want to have a super clear chain of command where when you're bringing this new person in, you talk to your team about, this is why we're doing it. This is the vision for this role. So this has to be a very transparent, emphasized conversation. So everybody on your team understands this is why you're doing this. So you have to tell them, you have to tell them the vision for this role, what you see them accomplish, how they're going to impact the company, right? You have to talk about the values that role comes with, how they can up-level not just company, but your role, client outcomes, company outcomes in general, but also, of course, how it's going to impact the team, how it's going to make their life better, because honestly, that's the only thing they care about. They want to hear how their life is going to be better, not how it's going to be more difficult for them. But that's really where you have to sell them on this piece, is like, we are implementing this role because it's good for all of us. So, because this will impact the team tremendously, because what happens when you hire, you've had a team that's been in place for a long time. Maybe some of them are quite comfortable in their roles. Some of them might be thinking of themselves more highly than they actually perform. So there's all sorts of ego stuff that happens when suddenly somebody comes in and threatens their territory, because at a very basic level, that's how we humans think of it. That's how we perceive this change. So it builds a lot of uncertainty in your team. It inspires a lot of uncertainty. And, uncertainty is the second human need. So in a way, it gives them the variety that they're looking for, where things are getting a little shaken up. It creates a little bit of stress, like positive and negative stress. It threatens their comfort zone. It threatens their seat. There's all sorts of stuff that humans will perceive as a threat. So it's up to you as the CEO to give them certainty that, yes, this is kind of an exciting new move. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of possibility, and it will be okay, right? So that's really your role in this transitional time. Because if you don't do that, then people's fear, their uncertainty, their territorialism they will start to sabotage this move, and they will not support this new leader, which is what you really need them to do, because they have the institutional knowledge, they have so much wisdom, they have so much input that your new leader really, really needs, so that they can hit the ground running and do a good job. So you want to make sure that you address with them really what it means to hire up and down, to manage up and down, so that they understand that how they need to support that new leader and how their role is going to shift and how they are going to implement this with their own teams, and make sure that everybody is in their sweet spot and everybody can execute at the highest level with this new level of support that you have. So again, you have to teach them how they perceive this, right? You have to control the narrative. You have to control the conversation about what you want them to think and what you want them to say, and also how they translate this to their own teams if you have another level below that. So you have to help them talk about, what's the vision for this role? Why do we even hire for this role, right? What is this role going to do? How is this role going to come into play? And what's the benefit to me? So I'm going to say this over and over again, because that is so important. Everybody just wants to hear, hey, what's the benefit to me that this new person is coming on board and everything is getting shaken up and everything is being uncertain, right? People don't like any of that stuff. So with all that being said, I'm going to divide this into some clear steps so that you can write this down and make sure that you follow these steps. So these are really the steps to make sure that this transition goes smoothly, that it goes efficient, and that you can bring the highest value with this right from the beginning. So everything we already said comes into play. Now, the first step really is you will have people that will have concerns when you announce this. And a lot of times it's people who've been there for a long time. So you want to make sure that these concerns don't go rampant, right? That people don't make up their own stories. Like I said, you want to control this narrative. So you want to invite them to raise their concerns. You want to acknowledge that they might have concerns because it's only natural. So there's no shame in even freaking out about it, but it's important that we all talk about it, right? So you want to invite these concerns most easily with the least impact. This is done in one-on-one conversations, because sometimes if you have this conversation with a group, with your full team, and then somebody starts going off the rails, well, that'll mean everybody's going to start going off the rails. And people who didn't think about negative things, suddenly they'll think about negative things. So the more you can kind of head this off at the pass, and you just don't even have those negative things come up because you already pre-addressed their objections, the better it's going to go. So get in a room with them, have your one-on-ones, prepare them. If they haven't been part of the hiring process, which I'll talk about in a minute, but if they haven't been part of the hiring process, make sure that you give them the intel that they need, that you tell them how to think about it, and that you address any of their concerns in a meaningful way. Because especially your long-term staff, if you don't do this, will have a lot more resistance. So do that at the basic level and do some more, because this will help them to buy in. This is you selling to them, and they need to buy in. So I know that you have concerns, they're valid, and let's talk about that. So give them the vision for how to look at this whole thing, right? The second thing is, as we talked about, redefining roles and responsibilities so that nobody feels like their territory is being threatened. Because here's the thing, this makes no sense, but a lot of times, even things that people have been bitterly complaining about, if you take it off their plates without explaining to them why and what's going to happen, they will feel sore about it. They'll be bummed about it. They'll feel like they've lost something, right? So this new person coming on board took something from them instead of it was a huge gain. So you always want to make sure that when you move stuff around, that you help people understand why. So that's what you tell them. Hey, this is what this new leader is going to do, which means this is how it's going to impact your role. That means you're going to have some new challenges that are going to be exciting. You're going to learn new stuff, and we're going to help you shift more and more into your sweet spot, right? Because that's always the idea. When you bring on somebody new, everybody else can move further into where they truly excel, and they get all this stuff off their plate that's actually slowing them down and getting in their way. So you want to avoid confusion. You want to avoid misunderstandings by pre-addressing them, and also help them define authority and understand decision-making areas. Because when somebody else comes in who has more authority, people start doubting like how they can operate. So you have to come in and help them understand, hey, this is still yours. This is still where you make decisions. You don't make decisions here anymore, but this is something else that now actually got added to you, to your responsibilities. So have those conversations if you want this to go well. And another piece of that, of course, is to really promoting open communication. And you might think, oh, you know what, this is great. We have that. Our people are not passive aggressive. We would have active conversations. Everything that you've just thought, don't forget about it, because everything just changed. You brought in a new alpha and they don't like it. So they might be pouting. They might be hiding. And some of your people might just don't really know how to speak up. They don't want to offend you. They don't want to alienate you. They don't want to bring up concerns. So, and that of course raises even more resistance. So you have to really encourage them to have that open communication where you encourage them to give you feedback. You give them feedback. You have clear meetings with specific groups who are the right people to have meetings with. And then, like I said, if anything kind of goes off the rail or gets weird, you want to pull that out into a one-on-one meeting where really if something pops up in a public meeting or in a bigger meeting, you want to say, hey, you know what, let me make sure that we take this privately, that I can really address your concerns. This is really not the forum to do that. Number 4, when that new COO or number 2 or whatever you want to call them comes in, of course you have to introduce them to the existing team. If they haven't been part of the hiring process, they have to understand, hey, who is this person actually? What are their qualifications? What are their credentials? What are their experts at? Like, how is this person going to come in and make a big difference? So you want to really help them build confidence around this person so that they feel like they can actually let go of some of their stuff to this person, and this person won't screw it up, right? Because that's also another part of their thinking. So you have to help them build that confidence, and really, I'll keep going back to help them understand why, so that they can truly put that into their vision and make the right decisions. So you want to help them how this will make change for good. And then the 5th point is get out of the way. And that's going to be tough on you, because now that actually means you have to give your new hire the time to establish authority and kind of fight their own battles, because there's still going to be, there's going to be challenge, even with everything we just talked about. So you're doing this super intentionally, you're doing this well prepared, there's still going to be some curveballs. Now, you want to give this new hire the time and the authority to handle their own challenges. Now, with you setting it all up, there should be relatively minimal, but like I said, there's still going to be some. So let them handle it. You get out of the way, because a typical move is, especially when you have people who've worked with you specifically for a long time, they will, this new person comes in and they will still call you if they need something. They will circumvent your new hire. They will still, maybe use the new hire for something basic, but when something is important, they will come to you, which is precisely what you don't want them to do anymore. So what you have to really do is you have to deny them the connection. And you have to do that with a lot of love and with a lot of intention, and just say, look, again, restate the vision for this role. Like, I hired Matt because I really need to be able to focus on leading this company. We have great visions to grow, which is going to be great for everybody. But Matt just came in, and this is now what he handles. So I promise you he can handle it. He's great at it. So please direct your questions to him from here on out. And they might get a little bit miffed about that, but at the same time, you got to keep doing that, because otherwise it will be terrible. You have to stay out of it, and your number 2 has to feel like that they truly have the authority to solve those situations now. I have addressed this a couple times. Number 6 is when you want to make sure that, if at all possible, you want to include your key stakeholders, your key employees, your A's in the hiring process. Not necessarily in the choosing of the person, but at some point during the hiring process, you want to make sure that they buy into this hire. So again, you sell them on it, right? You tell them all the reasons for why this person is great and why you want to hire them, but they should be able to either advocate for that or to give you the reasons for why not. And you want to listen to that, because especially if they're going to be most closely working with that person, you want to hear what their concerns are so that you can make the best decisions. So make sure that they will actually support this person's leadership by having been part of the process. And then number 7 is really, once this person comes in, throw a ton of training at them, at the rest of the team, at everybody, so the entire team is working on leveling up together, which really helps, because that means there's training, there's growth opportunities, there's possibilities that everybody is looking at, And that means now everybody has shared purpose, shared vision, and shared direction, because this is something new you're bringing into the entire team that everybody is working on together, right? And then the last point is, once this is rolling, really celebrate and acknowledge your team for the way they're contributing to this new hire, onboarding, how they're managing up to them, how they're helping them get on track, how they're sharing their institutional knowledge. Really emphasize the win of them working with this new hire, and then also really showcase and reflect to them how things are already going better, what a big difference this new hire has already made, so that they keep saying yes, they keep buying into this. So I hope this helps. This is very, very important anytime you bring on somebody new, but especially when they're going to be above people who've thought of themselves as high level. So follow all these steps. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We have a new training out there that addresses all this in detail. If you haven't seen it, go to bulletproofbusinessgrowth.com/leap, bulletproofbusinessgrowth.com/leap. Check out the training, and I will see you next time.